understand that in three different ways, if that's okay. I'll start with analogy. I found that analogies are helping the most to kind of quickly explain something. Then I'll go into the formal definition, a more formal definition, and then I'll just give my kind of uh, uh, viewpoint on top of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's multiple analogies in the marketplace today talking about what is product management. Is it a coach? Is it a CEO? Is it the intrapreneur, an entrepreneur, an internal innovator? No, there's a lot of different ways of slicing and looking at product management. What resonated the most with me is the analogy of a quarterback, right? And I think there's a lot of good parallels. The first one that I really want to emphasize that people have to realize is that like the quarterback, we don't decide who's the team and who's playing on the field at any given time, right? We're given a team. We're saying this is your company. Those are the designers. That's the engineering team. Now go and win, right? So we have no formal authority. And a survey I saw recently talks about even up to 67% of all product managers, others don't have any direct reports. They don't have any formal authority. They don't have P&L responsibilities. So we work really without formal authority, and it's really important to understand that. And I want to highlight that in other aspects of this conversation as well. But if you think about a quarterback, right? So it doesn't determine the players, it doesn't determine the playing field. The other part that's really important, and it's a good analogy, is product management is part of the team. It's not this distinct portion that sits somewhere else, right? It's on the field with the team, taking the blows, sweating, bleeding with them to get things done to win, right? And a product manager needs to have that mindset when he goes and working with those. It doesn't just write specs and puts them out there and is not engaging heavily with this team and the product team, what I call, or a pod, right? Which is if you think about the core, it's product, design, and engineering, right? You're with them, you're part of them. You celebrate the wins with them, and if there's losses and something doesn't work well, you don't point fingers, right? You're with them together. The other part of it that, like a quarterback, a product manager calls the strategy and game plan, right? This is what we call the product strategy, the roadmap, which features we want to build, right? And then their prioritization. Same thing with a quarterback. And I think very similarly, a quarterback always adapts to the playing field, to the team against him, the conditions of the field, and so on, right? Product management does the same with the market, regulations, competitors. You're always adapting. And I think the last part of that is also, in that analogy, is the fact that I see product management as a leader in the team, and we'll talk about more of that. I have some more thoughts on that one, but I think that part of the role of product management is also to be a motivator for the core team that builds the product, right? It's bringing feedback from the customers, what's going well, and if we're down, what do we need to do to win? And if you're halftime and you're 5 points below, you go and you come to your team and you say to them, hey guys, we need to rally, we need to win, this is how we're going to do it, and go out and win together, right? So I think that analogy really explains a lot for me and resonates really well with me about the role of product management in the context of building products and software products. Now, the formal aspect, right? And I brought a quote here that I want to quote it. There's a lot of different definitions, by the way, and a lot of formal definitions, but that one I felt is the best, also resonated the most with me. So this is by Don Benedetti. He's a 30-year-old veteran in the community of product management. Go look him up. So he says the role of product management is to deliver measurable business results through product solutions that meet both the market needs and company goals, right? And so there's a lot in that sentence, in that definition. And I want to kind of just address quickly some of those things there. First of all, deliver, right? Compared to other roles, business analyst, data scientist, and others that you might think, product management is about bringing something, taking a concept and bringing it into market, into the hands of a customer, someone that will derive value and will be willing to pay for it. we're not just thinkers, we're not just visionaries, right? Or we have a very specific role, and we're measured first and foremost on things we deliver to market. So that one I wanted to really highlight. The second thing is about business results. A lot of things people think like, I just build a feature. It's so cool. Let's build cool things, right? Of course, there's this element, but uh, product manager is not doing his job well, I would argue, if he is not thinking about what he's delivering to the market will help the business win, either impacting market share, profitability, increasing revenues, or any other business metric that the business cares about for that period of time. And the other part is market needs and company goals, right? Product manager has to align what he's doing with what the market needs, what his customers' pain points are, and what he's trying to solve, and not build things that might be valuable but not to his target market. And it has to align with what the company vision is, the company uh, mission statement, what it tries to deliver, and just make sure that those are aligned, right? So there's a lot in that definition, and I think it touches about all the aspects that product management is doing. Now, and I know it's kind of long-winded answer, but the last part of that, it, sorry, I would say, there's a saying, I'm just gonna sidetrack a bit. There's a saying that says, always be yourself unless you can be Batman, then always be Batman. And why am I saying that? Because if you guys have seen The Dark Knight, the movie, there's a scene at the end of the movie where Batman is going on the run, and he says to the police commissioner, right? He says to him, "I'll be anything Gotham needs me to be." And I think there's a lot to it to product management as well. And I would say that product management outside of the formal role and definitions, you're also a cohesive part of the team. And because we're about delivery, you gotta help the team in whatever it needs to take to get things out the way you need it to get out, right? So if you need to get your hands dirty, if you need to help with writing some document, whatever it might be at that point of time, you need to run a survey, talk to a customer. That's what you need to be able to do and understand that you need to do in order to help your team win and help the product win in the marketplace. So that's kind of my view on the role of product management.
Awesome.
I think the role of project management is a well-defined role, and there is room for that in many organizations, right? However, when you think about the role of product management, and we're talking about delivery, in order to be able to deliver and execute well, you have to have some project management skills. You have to say and work with your team, obviously, right? But you have to be able to say, this is what we're going to do, and this is roughly the time when we're going to do it, and those are the steps you're going to take in order to get there. That's project management, right? Um, you don't probably do analysis of resourcing because that's where engineering team comes into place. They need to, the engineering manager and the engineering team should say who the resources are, who would work on what, in order to scope the effort and give an estimated timeline. But it's up to you to make sure, because you need to communicate not only internally to other stakeholders, marketing, customer support, sales, and other functions within the company when things are coming out so they can all align their efforts for launch. But it's also about making the announcements to the market when those things will come in order to remain competitive and um, communicate to the market those are the things you're going to do, right? So it's not a subset. I want to be clear. It's not a subset of product management, but you have to have project management skills in order to be able to deliver and execute well with your team. So it's not a must-have. Let's start there. But you're a product manager for technology products, for tech products. So you gotta have a very good understanding of technology, and why do you need to have that understanding? And so it's different, right? Understanding and ability to understand what you're looking at and how it can be applied and the architecture and how it works is different from being an engineer that needs to be able to write code, It's not the same thing, right? And I want to make the distinction because a lot of people ask me the exact same question. I think it is advantageous to have engineering background because it lends itself to understanding better technology, but it's not a must-have. You can still have that experience through other venues, but you got to have that. Why is it important? It's important because when you look at technology, you got to understand what it can do for you. You got to understand its limitations and what you can use it with. So it puts constraints on what you define it. It helps you understand what the scope of things might have. Obviously, you need the engineering team to weigh in heavily on that, but it gives you even just looking at something gives you you have a understanding under what it can, what's the scope of that thing might be. How would it apply to your end customers? What you can do with it, and also you gotta be able to have intelligent conversations and pushback on your engineering team, right? Because if you don't have enough of that, they might give you answers that are not really satisfactory, and sometimes people need to be pushed a bit to get to a better outcome. And if you can't have that back and forth, it will hurt your credibility. They can tell you things that you might have needed, you could have pushed back on if you knew a bit better. I would argue, right, that if you're too technical, it's also bad. Why it is bad? Because then you might get into arguments with engineering about how to implement things, right? And that's not your job. As a product manager, your job is not to dictate, or you could weigh in, you could, give your thoughts as part of a discussion, but you should never argue for a very specific implementation because that's why engineering is there. That's why they're paid heavily. They're intelligent people that know their job, right? So you got to make sure that you're not over gravitating towards dictating implementation. That's their job. You just need to give them the requirements and have a good discussion on why the scope is that way, and if you do it a different way, will it change the scope? And so you need understanding, but you don't absolutely need engineering background. And one last word on that, by the way, I think that is really driven, I believe, from that myth of having the engineering background is driven by the fact that Google, one of the most successful technology companies in the world, only hires for if you have engineering background, and that's kind of their own value set that lends people to believe that everyone is looking for those things. And the other piece on that is there are technical product management roles which you should have a very strong engineering background in order to be effective in your job. But it's not the only type of jobs, right? You can have different product management roles. I think, when I'm thinking about the challenges, there's always multiple challenges you tackle at any given time. But the three biggest challenges for product management in the world today, I would say, in the role in different companies would be creating alignment between various functions about the roadmap, the strategy, and why you're doing what you're doing. I would say focus and keeping focus both of the organization about the value proposition, about the driving the roadmap and the features, because you'll always have people coming in at any given time with multitude of ideas, which some of them might be really great. I'm not discounting at all. It's not about that, but it might take you on a sidetrack from your goal and where you need to get, and it also makes things harder to execute if there isn't focus about what you're doing. And the third one I would say for product management is how do you say no to things? How do you say no to people that come up with different ideas? How do you push back on executives? They want to change things. Sometimes sales will come in. I have to have this feature to close this deal, even though that feature is not on the roadmap. It's not aligned with what your product is trying to do, right? But they say I have to have that so I can close the deal, right? So, and how do you push back? I think those are the three biggest challenges that you have to learn to deal with as a product manager.